everybody, and welcome back to my channel. This is number 4 in my series of Canva for card makers. You know, I keep emphasizing to watch all of these tutorials in order because I'm introducing concepts that build one upon the other. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and go back to number 1 and start there. And if you have been doing that, you've seen all these announcements multiple times, so I'm not going to go through them individually. But I would like to ask you once again to go ahead and subscribe to my channel, make a comment, click the like button, because all of those things do help me in the YouTube environment. And with that having been said, let's move on to today's topic. Last week we learned how to fill individual frames with photos or with graphics. And I told you that this week I was going to show you something a little bit more advanced. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. This is a card I made using frames that are actually letters of the alphabet. And you'll see that there's actually one picture that goes behind all of these frames, so that when you're looking at the left-hand side with the B, you're seeing the left-hand side of the photo. And when you go to the right-hand side with the H, you see the right-hand side of the photo, and the photo is continuous through all the letters. So that's what we're going to learn to do today. Here's another sample of another card that I made using the same technique. This one is for my grandson Sam, who's turning 12 and who loves golf. So I found a picture of a golf course, and I actually put that picture behind all of the lettered frames. I'm really excited to show you this technique because it's pretty easy once you know how to do it, and it has a lot of versatility. You can use it for a lot of different types of cards and a lot of different applications. So let's go straight to Canva. Here I've already opened up a new document that is 7 inches wide by 5 inches tall. I'm making these horizontals so that the letters can be a little bit larger. And over here on the left, you're going to see that instead of the actual templates area that came up at the design area, I made a folder with the things that I'm going to use in our tutorial today, just to make it faster so that I don't have to keep going over to the Elements tab and searching for new elements when I already know what I want to use. So what we're going to do is use one example where I'm going to show you the technique, and then we're going to actually make an entire card using that technique. So to show you the example, I want to show you a picture of New York, a card made with the idea of visiting New York, sending someone something saying hi from New York. And instead of New York, I'm just going to use the initials NYC. So I'm going to drag these over. Now I found these letters in the frames folder, just like all the other frames, and they have a whole alphabet there. In fact, they have more than one alphabet. But what I would warn you about is that, unfortunately, some of the alphabets only have some letters. They don't have all 26 letters in every alphabet. And I'm not exactly sure why that is, but I want to warn you that if you want to do what I'm doing today and you want to use the actual frames and use several different letters, it probably is best to choose these block alphabet letters that come with the Canva frames. Now, having said that, I'm going to tell you ahead of time that within the next 1 or 2 or even 3 tutorials, I'm going to show you different ways to make custom frames the way you want them, to fill fonts with different pictures through the lettering system, and a lot of other exciting things. So just hang on for the next tutorials because we're going to be looking at a lot of different techniques. But for today, we're going to stay with the block letters, and you'll see that you still have lots of opportunity to make fun things with them. Now you can see that I put them all on top of each other, and the reason that I did this was because I want to group them together. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight across this area, and everything underneath that highlighting will suddenly be selected. And you can see that there's three different selections here. If we go up to our position and layers like we've looked at before, you can see that all three have a purple boundary around them, meaning they're selected. And what I'm going to do is just group them together. It just comes up as a possibility to group them. And the only reason I'm doing this is to make them general same size. Now, this is very non-specific. It has to do with how many letters you're using, how wide your document is, and all of that. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about how to choose how big to make your lettering. I'm only using 3, so I'm kind of making them big here, and then I'm going to ungroup them again, and I'm going to start moving them around. So I'm going to drag them around in the right order to make New York City, NYC, here. And I want to show you a trick about that too. I want you to just drag this over here to about where you want it from the margin, from the edge of the card. And this one we're going to put about the same. Now, if we wanted to be really picky about this and very specific, what you can do is go up here to File. And remember when we were looking at how to do guides, and we were talking about how to print out our cards? Well, here's a trick. You can go to Custom, and you can do this to 0, and the gap to 0, but you can do a margin all the way around of however far you want that from the margin. So I'm not even sure. Let's put 0.25, 0.25, and 0.25. And there you're going to see a margin. So once you've done that, you can just slide this over here to butt up next to the margin, and you'll know that these will be exactly the same distance from the edges. But then how do we make them equidistant across the whole card? What do we do with this Y? Well, what we do is we select all 3 of them by holding the Shift key down and clicking on all 3. That will make them all highlighted. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back up to Position, and this is something I haven't shown you before. Remember when we said when there was a Layers tab here, there's also this Arrange tab, and there's a lot of things you can do with that. But for right now, what I want to show you is how when you have a group of something like this, we haven't actually technically grouped them, but we've highlighted all of them together. So they're all highlighted, and when you have more than one thing highlighted, you can go to Arrange and see where it says down here, Space Evenly, either vertically or horizontally. Well, we're working horizontal, so we want to space them evenly horizontally, and it will automatically space that. But you have to have the one on the left and the one on the far right where you want them, and it will space everything in between equidistant between those two. Does that make sense? So we put the N right up next to where we want it on the edge of the card. We put the C right up next to where we want it on the edge of the card. And then by highlighting all 3 letters and clicking over here, space evenly horizontally, it did it. Now look, you can see the Y and the C and everything, they don't line up exactly straight across. So I can click this Tidy Up, and look what it did. It automatically put them all in the same spacing, and it's all just looking good now. So that's how you get your letters to look the way you want them to. And don't think that it's too complicated for you to do. It's really not. Let's try it again. Let's undo this and move the letters around and try it again. Okay, we just put our letters on here. We made a 0.25 border around here, or a margin, using File and View Settings and Add Guides. and we set a 0.25, 0.25 margin. I'm just going to cancel this because we already have it on there. Now, remember, you don't have to be that exact. If you just want to kind of guesstimate it, go for it. Just drag this over to the left where you want it, and drag this one to the right where you want it. And then when you've got those two in place, however many letters, maybe you have a 5-letter word, that's fine. Just after you get the one on the left placed and the one on the right placed, or if you're working vertically, the one on the top placed and the one on the bottom placed where you want it, then just hold your shift key down and click on each one individually, every single letter in between. You go up to position and arrange, and then click horizontal, and see it moved it over horizontal so it was centered, and then tidy up, and look what happens. Now, while they're all three clicked, and meaning highlighted, you can move them up and down, and I'm going to put them in the middle for right now, and you can see where that crisscross of red lines or purple lines comes through with an X right in the middle, so you can see that it's centered. Now I'm going to go back up here to File, and I'm going to click on Clear Guides because I really don't want those lines on there the whole time we're working. And there are my 3-letter frames. Hopefully you can just go back. Remember, there's a table of contents, so you can go back to this little section as many times as you need to figure out what I did with that horizontal positioning and with the tidy up. So now we're ready to move on, except one thing. I forgot to lock my letters, so I'm going to highlight them all, and then I'm going to come up here and lock them because I don't want anything to mess with my lettering before I'm ready. We're back over here in my folder, and I've chosen this picture that I'm going to bring over here of the New York City skyline. And I'm just going to bring it up and expand it so that it's big enough to take up most of this page, just like that. And I can move it around and see where I want it to be. Now, to do that and to know where I want it, I'm going to actually go up to Layers, and I'm going to drag it underneath these letters so that I can see where I want to place things. You see that I've made it the whole size of the document. And I think, see that lighted, this building with the triangle light on the top of it on the left-hand side? Right here. I'm going to move that into the end because I like that placed there. And I'm going to leave that there and lock it, the background picture. And now I'm going to go ahead and select my letters again. First I have to click on it and unlock them, and I'm going to select them again, and then I'm going to move them a little bit down right here to this water line. You choose where you want your letters to be on your background picture. That's the bottom line. So I'm going to unclick these, and then I'm going to go ahead and lock these two again because we're going to work with the end first. Now, here's what we're going to do. Remember how we filled a frame just by dragging the picture over to it? So I'm going to do that with the N. And you can see we kind of have a problem here because the way this went into the N, it doesn't line up with the picture behind it. So what we want to do is do what we did with the fish last time in tutorial number 3. We're going to double click on that N, and that's going to bring up this picture that we want to put in it. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it larger to match the size of the background picture by dragging on the corner handles. Now it's the same size as the background picture. And now you can see, like, here's a spire and here's a spire. You can see they don't line up, but what we're going to do is just drag them over until they do. And I'm going to line up these spires together, and I'm going to line up the other elements in the picture because the top picture that's lined up with the N is transparent. And I can drag it across until I see that everything clicks and it's right on top of each other. And when it is right on top of exactly the same space in the background, I'm going to click Done. And look what happens. You can't even see that N anymore. If it didn't have a purple box around it, you wouldn't even see there was a letter there. And that's exactly what we want. We want it to be matching that background picture exactly. And once it is, I'm going to come up here and click Lock because I don't want anything to mess with it. And now I can unclick on the side and you can see, you can't even tell that letter's there. Now we're going to do the same thing with the Y, but we're going to come to it and we're going to unlock it so that we can make that happen. We're going to drag this over and put it in the Y, and you can see that it doesn't match. So we're going to double click it. We're going to use the handles on the corners to bring it to the right dimensions to match the background photo, like that. And then we're going to drag it until the elements line up right on top of each other again. And I just am going to do just that to make sure I'm using those two spires to line everything up. And there it looks exactly right, and I'm going to hit Done. And now the Y has disappeared because it's lined up exactly on top of the other one. I'm going to lock that again. And now we just have to do the same thing with the C. We're going to unlock it and we're going to come along and drag it over, and it filled it, but it doesn't match. So what are we going to do? We're going to double click on it and we're going to drag it out to be the exact same height as the background image. And then here we're going to drag it again, and I'm going to put those spires right on top of each other again to where they line up. And then I'm going to click Done. And then I'm going to click Lock to be sure that all the letters are locked. And look at it, it looks just like one picture. But here's what we can do. Now we can click on that background picture. Let's go up on Position on Layering and make sure, yes, we are clicked exactly on that. And we're going to unlock it. And then we're going to do a test on it. And here's what we're going to do. Instead of just deleting it, I want to make sure it stays there. So I'm going to show you something new. And that's this little box right here, which is for transparency. So instead of deleting it to make sure that my letters look okay, I can click on the transparency and I can bring it down to 0, and it makes that background picture be transparent so you can't see it. And now you see my New York City letters all together like that with the skyline going through them. We'll bring that back up again, and you can see that it's exactly the same. So how cool is that? That's what I did on this beach card to make the beach, and that's what I did with the golf course. Doing each letter individually, double clicking on it, and making it line up with the background image so that it all flows together across your card. So now let's look at what I did to make a card out of this New York City image. And here it is. I went ahead and I took that picture out of the background on this one, and I added a different background photo that actually is of a black brick wall because I thought it looked kind of urbanish. And is urbanish a word? I thought it looked kind of urban and like New York City, so I put a black brick background on it, and then I made a little border and put the wording on there, and we'll learn how to do all of that. But the point here is for you to understand that you can take these letters and you can do whatever you want with them. So how cool is that? Now we're going to make another card using the exact same process. And for this one, we're going to spell out the letters Y-O-U for you. So I'm going to put them on here. I'm going to kind of line them up so that they're on top of each other, and then highlight them, and I can make them whatever size I want, and I'm going to make them about that size. And then I'm going to start moving them around. Now with this one, I'm just going to put the O right in the center, and then I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm not going to worry about making it exactly perfect in terms of measurements. I just want to look and see if it looks good to me. Now, I think the U looks a little low, and you can see that it is. Can you see right here? I'm holding it here. If I move it, you can see that line that comes there right below the letters, and you can see that that means that the bottom of the letters are all on the same line, so it horizontally is on the same exact line. Now I can highlight them all again, being in the relationship to each other the way I want them to, and I can drag them until I see that line come down the middle, which says, oh, they're right in the middle of the page. And then I'm going to release my mouse button and click off of them. Okay, so what we're going to do is lock all of these. Make sure that they're locked. I should tell you, here's what the symbol looks like when it's actually unlocked. Then when it looks like there's a pencil there, it means that it will stay the same position on the page, but you can still substitute what's inside the frame, and we don't want that. We want it to be completely locked, so there's nothing that can happen to that Y when we're doing everything else. So now we're ready to start to work with our photo, and I picked this photo of some flowers. And I'm just going to go ahead and drag it and position it to where it's going to take up the entire slide like that. And there we have it. So now what we're going to do is do the exact same thing. We're going to lock this in place, and then we're going to unlock our Y, and we're going to drag this over here. And you can see it doesn't match up, but what am I going to do? I'm going to double click on it, and then I'm going to make this the same dimensions as the bottom base photo, and then I'm going to drag it until I see things line up. Like that top flower right there, I can see that it lines up, and when everything looks perfectly clear and on top of each other the way that it should, I'm going to release my left mouse button and click done. And now look, the Y disappeared, and I'm going to lock it again. And now we're going to go to this O, and hopefully this is beginning to make sense to you. I'm going to drag this over and fill the O, and of course it doesn't exactly line up, so I'm going to double click it. I'm going to bring it up to be the right dimensions. That's a little bit high. I want to make it exactly the same size vertically as the background image, and you can see there it certainly doesn't line up, but when I start moving it, I can make it line up exactly on top of the background pattern, and when it looks exactly the same, then I'm going to click done. And now the O has disappeared, and I'm going to lock it. And now we're going to do the same thing with the U. I'm just going to unlock it. I'm going to drag my flowers over there. I'm going to double click. I'm going to drag the corner handles until it becomes exactly the same height as the background image. And then I'm going to drag it sideways horizontally until all the flowers match up perfect. And they do. And now I'm going to click done. And now my U is invisible, just like we wanted. But now this time what I'm going to do is go ahead and select the background and unlock it. Now I came back over here to the position and the layers tab because I wanted to illustrate to you something that might happen. And that is sometimes when you put a photo onto a document and you drag it on, Canva will automatically make it the background. And if it makes it the background, you can't manipulate it like a photo anymore in certain ways. And so if that happens to you, what you're going to need to do is highlight the photo and unlock it. And then you're going to have it highlighted and right click on it and click detach image from background. Well, that will make it smaller again because you need to replace it onto your document. So what I'm going to do now is drag it out to be the size of the document again, and then I'm going to do something different, and that is, you can see now that it's not the background anymore. You can actually resize it, and what I'm going to do is just go to this top bar and I'm going to start bringing it down, and there you see our letters, and I'm going to bring it down, and now it's below the letters, but I'm going to go ahead and raise it up just so they overlap a little bit, and then I'm going to release my left mouse button and click out of it, and look what it does. It actually has where the flowers match going from the letters right into the bottom of the photo. Now you can click on this and you can play with it and make it do whatever you want it to do, but I really like it right there, right where you can see that the flowers all match vertically, and you can't tell. How did somebody do that? How did somebody take a floral picture and make the letters, like this white flower over here, actually blend together? And now you know how to do that. How cool is that? There are so many possibilities of things you can do, and I wish I could show them all to you, but I don't have time to do that. So what we're going to do is just highlight all of this together and come up here and lock it so that nothing's going to mess with our letters or our bottom photo, because we're going to have it look just like this. And that's what I have this love over here for, because I want to say love you. So I'm going to bring it up here. Now I just got this out of the Elements tab, but again, I don't have the time to go through everything every time. And I'm just going to come over here and put the love right there. And then I'm going to change the color of it by coming up here, and I'm just going to click this and make this one of the photo colors. And maybe I want to make it a little bit lighter than that, so I'm just going to come up here and kind of drag it around till I find something that I like, and I do like that. And now it's a little bit plain, so I want to add a shadow to it, and the way I'm going to do that, there are several ways of adding shadows in Canva, and this tutorial is not about how to add shadows. So today what I'm going to do is show you an easy way of just clicking that word, clicking duplicate, it makes two of them, and then I'm going to change one of them to be black, and I'm going to move the black one behind the orange one, and then the black one is the one that's selected, so I'm going to just kind of slide it around until I see it just slightly overlap the orange one. And you can play with these. You can go back and forth and play with them. Now if you zoom in, you can also use your arrow keys on your keyboard to move them. And I kind of like it like that. I'm going to lock that in place. I'm going to come back out here and minimize it again. And then what I did next with this card was put it on a background and make the background this dark purple from this flower here. And here's the end result. And you can see how it turned out. So if this last part was confusing to you, just go back and watch it again. The table of contents has every section of the lesson individually listed, so you can click on it and watch that section over and over again if you want to. I just think it's a fabulous look. You can try it with any kind of background image. It doesn't have to be flowers. We could have done this with our New York City image just as easily and had it look just as great. So you can play around with this. You can also change the background, and if you didn't want it on white, you could come up here and pick one of the photo colors to put it on. Maybe put it on a light pink, choose this pink, and then come up and make that lighter so it's not quite so white and have it look like that. It's up to you. Whatever you want to do, you can do. So I really encourage you now this week, until I get the next tutorial posted, that you would practice with these letters and that you would learn to move the photo into them individually and then double click on it and expand it so that it matches the background photo, and then learn to save it and lock it. And if you can do that, you are going to have so many opportunities to make really fabulous lettering for your cards. You don't even have to make an actual card. You can make lettering and cut it out using a Cricut or some other machine-aided cutting process. But a lot of us don't have those things. So even if you don't, you can cut these out by hand, put on cards. You can do whatever you want to do with them. Just practice, practice, practice. You know how they say practice makes perfect, and I think it really does. You just get more used to manipulating these images and it becomes more comfortable for you. So please let me know if you are totally confused. Leave a comment and ask me a question and I will answer it to the best of my ability. I want you to learn these things and I want you to have fun using them. We have so much ahead of us to learn, and I'm trying to make it in little easy steps. So I'm excited about our progress, and I hope you are too. And if you do anything with this, please put it in our Facebook group. I'm just dying to see what you do with these concepts. So many blessings to all of you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.